Have you ever felt that as much as you try to be a good person, the world does not seem to return? You help others, always say yes, avoid conflicts. But in the end, no one values what you do. If this has happened to you, then maybe the problem is not the world, but the way you position yourself in it. The truth is that being too good can be the biggest obstacle of your life. And who understood this better than anyone was Machiavelli, one of the most controversial thinkers in history. Many believe that Machiavelli defended only coldness and manipulation, but in fact, their teachings go far beyond politics. They show how human relationships really work, and why those who try to please everyone end up being the first to be left behind. So if you feel that people take advantage of your goodwill, pay attention. Machiavelli may have the answer to your problem. From an early age, we are taught that being a good person means pleasing others, being kind, and avoiding in conflicts. But what no one tells us is that in the real world, being too good can be expensive. Think about it. Have you done something for someone expecting recognition and in the end was completely ignored? Have you helped a colleague at work and then saw him receive the credits? Or maybe you have made favors for a friend who disappeared when you needed something. This is the fate of those who try to please everyone, to be used and then discarded. And Machiavelli already knew that. He wrote that it is better to be feared than loved, a strong phrase, but carries a deep truth. People respect those who impose limits. When you always say yes, you become predictable, weak in the eyes of others. And the worst? You start to feel frustrated yourself. You want to be recognized. You want people to see their value, but in the end, they just feel exhausted and without energy. The problem is not being good. The problem is to think that boundless kindness will bring you respect. But then how to find this balance? How to be respected without having to be cruel? This is where Machiavelli's teachings come into play. Machiavelli is known for impactful phrases, often misunderstood, but when we look at his teachings carefully, we realize that he did not defend cruelty without purpose, but strategic intelligence. And to understand this, let's look at 3 essential principles of Machiavellian thinking. 1. It is better to be feared than loved. This is undoubtedly one of the most famous phrases in Machiavelli, and also one of the most controversial. But before you think this means being cruel or authoritarian, understand what he really meant. People who want to be loved at all costs become vulnerable. If you need the approval of others to feel good, anyone can manipulate you. If you worry more about the opinion of others than with your own limits, people will realize and explore it. The solution? Develop a firmer posture. It does not mean being aggressive, but imposing respect before seeking acceptance. In practice, the next time someone tries to press you to do something you don't want, try to answer directly and without explaining yourself too much. Something like, I don't know. I think I can try. This shows insecurity. I can't do that now. Short, firm, and without making room for discussion. 2. Man is fickle. Machiavelli noted that people change their minds according to their interests. That is, no one is loyal forever. And those who do not understand this risks being betrayed or manipulated. Does that mean we should be paranoid and distrust everyone? No. But it means we cannot be naive. In practice, at work, if you are always helpful but never impose limits, people can start seeing you as a resource, not as a respectful one. In relationships, if you never value yourself, people can start treating you as guaranteed. The solution? Always be aware of changes in relationships and never deposit all your confidence in someone without discretion. 3. The end justifies the means. This is perhaps the most controversial phrase in Machiavelli, and also one of the most misunderstood, Many people think this means anything is worth a goal, but it's not quite. Machiavelli meant that in some situations, difficult decisions need to be made to ensure a greater result. If you want respect, sometimes you need to say no, even if it generates discomfort. If you want to grow professionally, sometimes you need to take unpopular but necessary attitudes. If you want peace of mind, sometimes you need to cut ties with people who suck you emotionally. Does that mean going over others? No, it means being strategic. After all this, the big question arises: how to find a balance between being a good person and at the same time not explored. Machiavelli did not say that we should be cruel or insensitive, but that we need to have a strategic stance. In other words, we must be respected before we are loved. Here are 3 principles that help find this balance in practice. 1. Be fair, but not naive. Many people confuse kindness with submission. Helping others is positive, but when it happens at the expense of their own well-being, it becomes a problem. If you always give in, people start to see this as normal and expect you never say no. When finally tries to impose a limit, it is seen as someone who has changed or became selfish. The solution is to make it clear from the beginning what their limits are. Don't expect others to guess what you tolerate or not. In practice, that means say yes when you really want to help, not by pressure. Learn to say no without justifying yourself too much. Avoid taking responsibilities that are not yours. 2. Respect to be respected. Respect is built with actions and consistency. Those who try to be respected only with words but do not impose limits ends up being ignored. If you want people to value you, you need to show that you also value yourself. This means acting firmly when necessary, without fear of displeasing. This does not mean being rude, but having security in your decisions. People who show conviction are naturally more respected. In practice, if someone tries to exceed their limits, reaffirm their position without aggression. If you realize that a relationship is based only on what you offer, reassess this relationship. If a favor is requested abusively, learn to refuse without guilt. 3. Choose where to invest your energy. Not all. People deserve their attention. Some will respect you for what you are, while others will only be around what you can offer. Machiavelli said that we should approach the right people, that is, those who add value and who recognize our importance. This does not mean discarding people, but understanding that not everyone who approaches want their good. In practice, evaluate which relationships are genuine and which are based on interest. Learn to identify manipulative behaviors. Do not be afraid to get away from those who do not value you. Those who learn to balance goodness and firmness gain respect without having to force. People like this are seen as reliable, but not as easy targets. Now that you understand how to apply these concepts, just one step is missing to consolidate this change and transform your posture. At this point, it was clear that being too good can be a problem. Not because goodness itself is bad, but because without limits, it makes room for disrespect and manipulation. Machiavelli taught us that respect comes before acceptance. People who try to please everyone end up without their own identity, while those who impose boundaries are seen as figures of authority. The balance between kindness and firmness is essential. Being respected does not mean being feared, but being someone whose presence and words have weight. Now stop and think. How many times have you said yes when you wanted to say no? How many times did you give way just to avoid conflict? If you feel that this video made sense to you, it's time to act. Leave in the comments. What was the situation you realized that being too good was hurting you? If this content has helped you, share it with someone who also needs to learn to impose. And if you want more reflections on philosophy and behavior, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so as not to lose the next videos.